Hello everyone, it's Kristen Redman, Astrological Intuitive, and today we are going to be discussing the planetary influences that are making an impact on us in the upcoming year of 2021. And we are set for a year of rebuilding on some solid ground, but I think there's going to be some unexpected energies that pop up, and we're going to have a lot of energy kind of stuck and stagnated in the old that tries to prevent the new from coming in, and it's going to create a weird back and forth kind of roller coaster type energy that happens through 2021. But ultimately, once we get through these growing pains of starting the new foundation, we certainly will be rebuilding on solid ground that's more fitting for where we all are now and where the trajectory of our planet is going. So let's get to it, shall we? Now we look at planetary aspects, and when I say aspects, what that means is one planet out there in the sky makes a connection, a mathematic degree connection with another planet. Some of these aspects can happen from day to day. Some of the slower moving planets that go really, really slow, like Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, those guys move so darn slow that when they actually do make a connection with another planet, some of these aspects can take 12 years, 20 years, 40 years, 80 years, 800 years in some cases. And in 2020, we had so many of these major aspects that happened all in the same year that it really shows that the Earth is going through quite a massive transformation. These aspects, when these planetary alignments happen, that's what they trigger, is change and growth, and sometimes it can be massive upheaval. And we had a lot of them last year that caused this upheaval. And so here we are going into 2021, and we don't have as many massive aspects, but we're still reeling and dealing with the aspects that happened from 2020. One of the major ones that happened last year in 2020 that's carrying over as we move into 2021 is the alignment of Jupiter and Saturn. That's what the news was calling the Bethlehem star, right? Because these two planetary, even though they're far away, when they align, we can actually see it out there, and it looks like a massive star. That's 800 years in the making right there, that specific alignment and the specific sign and all of these types of things that fall into those categories that we astrologers know. But what that means, having Jupiter and Saturn aligned, that's something that happens every, let me dial it back. So that's every 20 years that this happens, actually. And each time it aligns in a different sign, it carries a different flavor. But ultimately, what it's trying to do is rebuild the outdated structure. It's tearing down old structures that don't work, and it's rebuilding new based off of where we are now as a collective whole and what will work better for us. Anything old and outdated isn't going to work anymore, right? You know, like you go to the park and you know, the picnic tables are covered in lead-based paint. Well, that doesn't work. Maybe it worked 25 years ago, but it doesn't work now. We have to sand it down, start all over, and put new latex paint on it, right? Same goes with our world and with our universe, and how it knows when it's time to purge and to purify. And when Jupiter and Saturn align, that's a time when it happens, all right? The last time this happened was in 1999. And we look at what was happening then. That was the dot-com era, right? That's when we were starting to notice where the advent of the internet was really taking off, where it was in every American's home, how we were utilizing it for school work, for meeting others, for networking, for buying things, right? And then we saw a decline in brick and mortar stores having the advantage that they did, right? That was saying this structure doesn't work anymore, and now we need to become technologically more advanced, right? We dial it back another 20 years and we go back to 1981. That's when we had a massive global recession because there had been so much excess that had been building up, and that balloon exploded and it created this massive recession that changed the way that the world worked, the automotive industry worked, so many different things that shifted and changed then. You know, and we could dial it back more and more and more, but each time it takes on that flavor where this doesn't work, we need something new to happen. And we can break that down by the planets, okay? We have that structure, right? That's Saturn. Saturn is the structure and the foundations that are under our feet. And when Saturn, what Saturn wants us to do is it wants us to work hard, right? Saturn's like, you work hard and you earn this and blah, blah, blah. And it's the planet of responsibilities and restriction. That's the problem. When we have these connections with Saturn, we find that it's holding us back and it's making us wait, right? On the other end of that spectrum, we have Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet that expands and grows whatever it touches. It wants to push beyond the limits of restriction. So you can see where these two don't really get along, right? Jupiter gives you luck out of nowhere. Blind luck is what Jupiter represents. And so when these two forces collide, it's like, well, no, we need to just give this. Nope, they got to work and they got to earn it. I'm going to hold these blessings back from you, Jupiter. All of this push and pull, push and pull, push and pull. But as we do, it slowly starts to break down those limitations of Saturn. Jupiter does. It breaks it down over the course of that few months. And it really starts to show the possibility of what can be in the future. That's what we're looking for, the possibility of what can be. And so we're starting out the year with that, right? We're starting out, but this time it's different because we're in Jupiter and Saturn have aligned in the sign of Aquarius, where before that wasn't the issue. Aquarius is innovation. Aquarius is freedom. Aquarius is transparency, and Aquarius is liberation from the chains that hold us back in the past. So you have the planet of expansion moving us in there. And you also have that planet of boundaries and structures and our foundation, Saturn, that's moving into a territory that's more open for innovation. It's more open to open-mindedness and different ways of doing things. It is. And so we have these two major planetary influences starting out the new year, bringing that energy in, right? So you can see where that starts off. We're also starting the new year under the influence of a full moon. What's interesting is that we started out 2020 under the power of a full moon, the Cancer full moon. Full moons represent cycles of completion. So we started 2020 out on a cycle of completion. Cancer having to do with home, family, childhood roots, and comfort zones. That's what Cancer deals with. You can see how quickly that started to mold and shift as we went through all these other planetary influences. And we're ending the year. Tuesday the 28th, we had another full moon in Cancer, which is pretty rare that we'll have two full moons in the same sign in a year. But it's saying we're starting this year out reassessing our childhood wounds, our roots, our comfort zones. We're reassessing our home and what we consider home, what we consider comfort. And then we're ending the year on that same note as well too, but now it's reached a completely different completion point. Now we're ready to purge. We've realized and recognized what has to go out of these old comfort zones that don't work anymore, because the more we hold on to these outdated, outmolded structures, the worse and the harder it's going to be, because it's going to prevent all this major growth that's coming in. So we're starting the year out on a full moon energy, an ending cycle, moving that in. But as we do, there's all of this Aquarian influence too that's about unexpected things, right? That's what Uranus, the planet that rules Aquarius, is all about. It changes things abruptly. It changes things unexpectedly. There was a lot of Uranus and Aquarius influence in 2020, and that continues now. That doesn't change because we have Jupiter and Saturn starting the year out with that as well too. Really trying to redo these structures that are under our feet. And as it goes in with these unexpected events that it throws at us, it knows that we wouldn't have done it because we just get stuck in these comfort zones. We wouldn't have changed it on our own had this crazy situation not occurred. Fill in the blank for whatever that may be, right? I think we can all think of a few this year where some crazy things were thrown at us and we had to change direction, change the way that we do things, change the way that we approach things, right? And as we do, that's where innovation comes, right? And authenticity, that's what it does too, right? It's saying you wouldn't have done this otherwise. And now that you have, now you can see that this is more true and fitting to who you really are. Now you're living more authentically in the skin that you're supposed to be, authentically in the government structures. There's going to be more transparency that comes out of this as a result. And I know that seems weird to think now, but it ultimately is. This is getting to be a point where the government goes, okay, maybe we can't hold these things back from people anymore. Maybe they deserve to know certain things. And I think there's going to be this is the starting process of that, where we see behind the scenes more. We have more honesty. We have more transparency that comes from the higher ups, but that also works on a personal scale too. We don't want to deal with the riffraff anymore. We don't want to feel like we have to hide behind things and hide behind, to spare feelings or what have you. No, now is the time where we understand more than ever the power of vulnerability and the power of authenticity and the power of honesty, right? We deserve it. We all deserve it. And that's going to be carrying through as we move forward on our new paths and the uncertainty of the unknown, which it is. It certainly is. There's a new world structure that is being built. And anytime we have a civilization that's completely torn down and has to be rebuilt, there's growing pains. And there's people that hold on to the old beliefs with all their might, right? And these can be the people that were in complete control and complete power. They will continue to hold on through 2021 as the remaining rebellion force over here that wants to change and shift things. They're working to fight against that. So there's going to be that push and pull between them at random times throughout the year. And that's because Saturn, okay, we talked about Saturn before, it's squaring Uranus in these ways that also take 20 years. That's going to happen a few times throughout the year. That happens February 17th, June 14th, and again on December 24th this year, where the old power structures square off and fight with the new world that's trying to be built. And it's interesting to see how that will happen. I'm not sure how it'll happen, but I can guarantee you it's going to bring dramatic changes to the way that we relate in business, the way we relate to each other, government, all of those things, the way we work, our careers, how we work. I think there's going to be so much realization that there's more productivity with people working remotely than there is having people in office. The whole landscape of the way that we've worked can completely change moving forward, and those things ultimately better us, right? It gives us more time with family. It gives us more time to explore our own things. The more that we live in our individual purpose, the more that we live in our individual path, the happier we are. The happier you are, the more you raise the Earth's vibration, because happy person, happy person, happy person, that sends that good energy into the collective consciousness, which rotates this world and makes it keep going. It's the absolute truth. And so here we are, we're building that up together. And I think one of the hardest things that people are going to have to understand is these, old structures are fighting to hold on to what used to be, and the new is trying to push and knock out what used to go. I think the hardest thing is there's going to be feelings of an excessive amount of restriction and restlessness at the same time within all of us. And the key to all of that is just sitting with patience and acceptance. I think that's easier said than done for a lot of folks, but there is a power and a peace that comes with just accepting that things are as they are. And if you try to fight it, if you try to fight others, if you try to force them to see how frustrating it is and what should be done and all these things, all you're doing is wasting your energy. You're depleting your life force energy by fighting against something that we have absolutely no control over. What we do have control over is our thoughts and our ability to respond. We control our emotions, right? And so this is a year where I think people start to understand I have power in just being silent and saying, it is what it is. I don't know how it's going to work, but I'm going to stay in my lane and I'm going to focus on what I'm doing. And the more that we can do that, the more these structures can rebuild in a way that has no interference, that has no negative energy attached to it, and we can rebuild a civilization that's more fitting to where we are as a whole, where there's technological advances that we had no idea were in the works that will come through, where there's healthcare advances that we had no idea were in the process of being made that are going to be made to us. Financial balance that's going to be coming with this. There's so much good, but we have to learn that we have to let go of the old ways because they just don't work. They just don't work. Now, another thing that we have here going into 2020 is we have the completion cycle of the Sagittarian Gemini eclipses. Us astrologers look to eclipses, and man, these are like the big things that happen in the year, right? That's where the new beginnings and the new energy is coming through. Gemini represents communication, and this is super important too, because at the same time we have our Mercury retrogrades that are going to be happening this year in each of the earth signs. All about thought, all about communication, and reassessing how we do that. Reassessing how our thought patterns work and outdated ways that our beliefs no longer serve us now, right? All that outdated structures and stuff, it's not just for the collective whole, it comes down on an individual level too, and a lot of it comes from mindset and communication this year. So we're going to see a lot of times here throughout the year where it's stepping back and recognizing, maybe my thoughts do create my reality more than I realized. Maybe the way that I've said this all these years isn't working. Maybe I do need to vocalize and say these things more. There's so much that can come with that. And we have a Gemini eclipse that happens on June 10th, where I think it reaches a peak. You know, I really, truly do. And at that same time, it's a new moon. So this is super new beginnings, where it's asking us how we are acting. Right? How are we acting on these things? The thoughts that we have, how are we acting on these thoughts? How is it producing the results that we see in our life? That's what's going to be coming through at that time frame. Now, at the same time, too, we also have these Sagittarian eclipses that are happening on May 26th and then again on December 4th. And these are the time frames when what has been hidden comes to light, because Sagittarius is the sign that represents truth. And I think that we're going to see a lot of signs from the universe in that time frame where things that were hidden to us come visible. No longer can be hidden, because the more that they're hidden, the more that it keeps us stuck in these outdated structures. So with Jupiter ruling that, it's stretching us and it's pushing us outside of that. So pay attention to what's happening at those eclipses, May 26th and December 4th. What is the universe showing you? Where do you need to stretch beyond your limitations in that time? It certainly will show you, because it's not just about the world stretching and moving forward, it's about us. Now, we also have the first of the Taurus eclipses that's happening this year as well. And that's on November 19th. That's another time when we will be seeing some hidden things that come to light. But because it's Taurus, it's going to take on the flavor of finances and self-worth. I think a lot of self-worth has been brought to the surface. The old beliefs, self-limiting beliefs that we have surrounding our self-worth that we adopted in childhood. I think people understood that quite well last year, and how that in itself is outdated and needs to be released and replaced with something more. And you'll find at that time frame, November 19th, that those aspects, maybe you get some ideas how to move forward and say, I deserve better. I deserve more in this time frame. Absolutely. And not only that, but because it's an eclipse that happens in that sign that deals with finances and health, I see that being a massive reboot for all of us as well in that time frame too. Now, we'll get back to those Mercury retrogrades in a minute, but I'm going to move next to the fact that this is a yin metal ox year in the world of Chinese astrology too. And that highlights solutions for the recovery process. I think we are going to find the cure for this disease. I think there's more diseases. I will be honest with you. I think there's going to be more of these superbugs that show up and pop up. But because of what we've gone through now, we're going to be armed with the knowledge and the ability to act quicker moving forward in this time frame. I also see that in that time frame, just before that eclipse that happens in November, that the global markets start to stabilize. I see that happening towards the end of August. And along with that, the vaccines are taking care of things, the virus gets under control, life gets back to a little bit more normal, but there's no going back to what it used to be. That will never be, because it's not intended to go back to what it was before, ever. I mean, that's the whole idea. That's why it's all tearing down in the first place. Now, what a yin metal ox year means in the terms of that. Yin is about passive energy. It's about feminine energy, which means being receptive, right? Going within. So we have yin, inward, looking at the details, knowing that when we sit with that in silence in ourself, that's where wisdom comes through. And the metal also represents that too. That represents intelligence and innovation that moves forward from sitting and waiting and understanding things fully before acting, right? Now, ox, of course, that is hard work and success that comes through tenacity. So obviously we see that through this inward looking at the details, accruing all of this wisdom and knowledge, and the hard work that we're putting towards it through the restrictions that we're being placed in, we are able to come through and know that success is happening as a result. So yeah, that starts February 12th, obviously. And in terms of numerology, we are going into a 5-year numerology. 2021 adds up to the number 5, and 5 is about change, absolute change, freedom and liberation and change. And that is what I see coming through. The true meaning of freedom gets itself revealed to us, and that the stability in ourselves in these uncertain times comes through embracing the uncertainty, embracing the freedom that comes with this uncertainty, because we're writing a new script, right? And that's what 5 represents. So what a 5-year asks us to do is to stay curious, stay focused and curious, accept and embrace what there is, embrace the uncertainty, and have fun, right? Because 5 also represents having fun and just enjoying ourselves. And I think that's something that we'll have the ability to do more so as the year progresses. So yeah, absolutely. That's kind of a breakdown of all of it for this year. And I think ultimately in general, we're moving in the right direction. I think we're going to be hit with more restrictions, and in those times, people know, please know, that behind the scenes there's a greater good that's working in our purpose that is holding us back, and that right behind it, Uranus is going to come through, the planet of innovation and new beginnings, right? And it's going to knock down those restrictions and allow something good to come in. I just see that going up and down throughout the year. Have patience, have faith, and know that once we get through this, we're going to be built on a brand new solid ground that's so much more fitting for all of us. Absolutely. So everyone, I thank you so much for watching, and I wish you a happy and most of all, healthy new year in 2021. Thank you for watching.